Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsonelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with us today, and I have an awesome guest. I love all my guests, you guys. This is like, you probably hear this every single time, but I promise every single one of them is phenomenal. So Jessica is here with us today. Jessica, thank you so much for joining me for the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, of course. And you have like the best name because that's actually one of my sister's names. So like you get bonus points for having that name. So
that is a really nice one.
So I'm so excited to have you here today. I think we're going to have a phenomenal conversation. So as we dive in, then please tell everybody who you are, what it is that you do, and what got you into your space.
Yeah. So I have two separate companies that I run. One is called Ink Blocks, where I work with new and expecting moms who are wanting to stay in the workforce. And I work with them in a way that gets them to stay in the workforce on their terms. And I coach them through that process from the time that they find out that they're pregnant. How do I start to tell people in the office what's going on, to how do I come back and show up in a way that's going to be meaningful to me and my new way of life, because everything has kind of gone topsy-turvy for me. And the other one is 3 Keys Consulting, where myself and my partner, Allison Wright, started. We help organizations and the people within thrive during times of change. And we look at this as a really important way to keep engagement up. Change can be really hard, and it's a really human experience. And so we want to make sure that we're helping people understand that you can not just get through it, but you can actually thrive and come out the other side really in a wonderful place. And that's what we do.
Oh, I love this so much. And I have to say too, that what I think is really unique about both of the things that you do is both of them encompass changes, right?
Absolutely.
In our lives, like things that like really make you pivot or have to switch gears on or whatever that may look like. And I love the fact that, especially with the new moms, that you're giving them this space, because I think that this is super important. And this goes for people in corporate or those that are entrepreneurs. You can work as a mom and have kids. If you don't want to be a stay-at-home mom, you're not a bad mom. I got that for so long, and I always felt guilty, but I was like, I am not a stay-at-home mom. Like, I love my children, but I loved working. I always have. And I know I've talked to so many women that are like, oh, I think I'm just going to stay home. But you can tell that that's like not what they want to do. But I feel like there's this stigma around that. And changes in general, right? What, like, we go to make changes and then maybe like we decide not to, but then we're like, okay, maybe we'll just like sweep it under the rug so like nobody knows about it, kind of thing. I know you and I were just talking off camera that I just did a huge announcement. This is recordings going later. So September, I did a huge announcement of something that I'm changing in my business. And, I had someone that was like, why don't you make it like an event? And I was like, You know what? That's a really great idea. Like, why not? Like, why do we feel like we need to hide when we make pivots or when something that becomes priority in our life is more important, even though there are going to be people that are like, I don't agree with that. But at the same time, it's like you can't make everybody happy, and that's not
Right.
your job. So, like, if it works for you, how can you lean more into who you are and what makes you happy and what aligns with you so that you are in your creative space and not stressed out because you're just worried about everybody else's thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. And change is one of those things where it's sometimes hard to celebrate, but sometimes really easy to celebrate. And
Hmm.
why not take a moment out of your day to celebrate when something is different and you're excited about it? It's amazing. Take the time to do it and enjoy yourself. And when it comes to new moms, as you said, it's really hard and it's a tough decision to make to say, what am I going to do? Do I want to stay home? Do I not want to stay home? How do I think about how what this could look like for me? Maybe it's not coming back in a traditional way. Maybe you want to start coming part-time and easing back in. There's so many different ways for women to still be able to feel like they can support themselves, their family, and their brain when they want to. And so, for me too, I remember after I had my first, after 3 months, was ready to come back to work. I was excited to come back. And I also knew that I wanted to make that time count. And if I'm going
Hmm.
to be away from my family and I'm going to be away from my adorable little new baby, I want to make it that it's going to be meaningful and I'm going to be doing things that are going to have an impact. And so that was really important to me. I had a lot of conversations with my manager at the time, and he was such a supportive person and it just made life so much better. Um, I had a lot of support around me and people who coached me on how to have those conversations. But how was I going out? How was I talking about my pregnancy? Right? Like it's that in itself is so scary to do sometimes. Like, how do you
Yeah.
tell your boss who is a different gender than you sometimes that you're, hey, like I'm pregnant, and all the questions that come with it that maybe you're not ready to answer.
Yeah.
So I had that support and I want to give that support to other women so that they can feel like when they make those choices, that they're making the choices that really feel good and right to them.
And it makes so much sense. And I think that we get stuck so much on everybody else's thought process or the invisible fears that we fill ourselves with because we're like, oh, I've seen the way that they act when they're around this person. Like, this is how this is going to go. And like, I feel like sometimes, and I'm totally guilty of this. I do this not as much as I used to, but it still happens to where you build up this whole scenario in your head. And I think that it's a way that our brains are trying to protect us because, like, okay, if I can play out every scenario and I can come up with a way to talk to them, a way to go at their objections or whatever the case may be, then I'm safe, right? I'm not in
Mhm.
the unknown. I can at least figure it out. And it's so interesting when you think about that and then when it actually happens, being aware that like it probably didn't happen the way that you thought, right? Like you and I were just talking about
Right.
this, right? I had set this event up. It was my first event that I was hosting, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to look at my Zoom. I'm not going to look at my Zoom. Like I was so afraid that I was going to have like 5 people that registered, and then when I finally popped on and saw 36, I was like, oh my word, like it was. But it's being aware of like, okay, so what that was just some stupid fear that like isn't based in reality. It's just something that was there because I'm afraid to look stupid or, post online and only have like this small group of people, which is not a bad thing, FYI. But you
Nope.
just like you get in your head, right? And it was like it literally took me until the day before the event to finally pull my Zoom up and be like with one eye open, like, I think I want to see.
And also what you're describing, Kat, is this fear of the unknown. Like, I don't know what's there. Right. And it's not that you're scared of the change per se. You're scared of the things you don't know that's going to happen as a result of that
Hmm.
change. And so our brains are naturally wired to protect us, as you said. They're there to protect us. And so they're there and they're scanning our environment, seeing about like all the things that could possibly go wrong. And they're trying to bridge gaps. They're literally bridging a gap in the knowledge that you have versus knowledge you don't have, and what you know will be, right? So you knew that you're going to do this celebration and event, and then you knew the event was going to happen, but you didn't know anything that was going to be between that.
Oh, true.
Right? So your brain was telling you a billion different things that could have possibly been there. And the things that our brains come up with, I would say 90% of the time aren't real, right? You
Yeah.
just experienced it. Like we put ourselves into these places that where we kind of work ourselves into tizzies because we don't know what's going to be. And in the absence of information, our brain makes up a story, and those stories are scarier than reality.
Ooh, I love that. In the absence of information, our brain makes up a story. Write that down. Everybody just go ahead and write that. Like that was like, oh, oh, I need to remember that because it's so right. And it's so funny is like I find myself doing this with my kids now. I mean, my kids are 20 and 16, right? And there's been so many times where, especially my youngest one right now, in his on his team, he's like, oh, I didn't do this because they probably didn't think. And I'm like, no, 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 no. We're not going to make up stories. Go to the source,
Mm-hmm.
have the conversation, ask the questions because your brain is so good at assuming what it thinks is going to happen. And just like you said, right, it fills in that story. I love that bridging the gap. It's filling in that gap. And I never thought about it that way. And that is one thing I've really leaned into this year is like, how can I get more information so that I quit coming up with my own story? Who can I ask questions to? Where can I go to? How can I get what I need so that I can tell my brain to hush,
Yeah.
listen over here, right? Like, so curiosity has become like a huge part of who I am now, which is really interesting because I was never that way. It was always like, I know what we're doing this, and I'm controlling this, and this is happening. XYZ. Like that's how it was, where now it's a lot easier to like lean into that and be like, it's okay. I know I don't have control over this outcome, or I know I don't have control over that, but I can control this. And then going and asking questions to seek out additional information to fill in those spots.
Absolutely. And so part of that is just having the intentionality of recognizing and saying to yourself, I'm going to pay more attention to what's going on in these moments. And when you do, even just saying it, you start to pick it up more. And then it starts to become more of a practice, right? So it becomes more of a practice. And I'm going to try to do this more often. I'm going to ask the questions. I'm going to get a little bit curious. And curiosity is one of the best fighters against fears during times of change.
Mm-hmm.
Getting curious helps you understand things. It helps you think differently. It helps you think about and examine all these assumptions that you're making. How real is that one? What really is the likelihood that that's going to happen? And then you can decide, well, maybe it's 10% likelihood. Okay, well, do I want to spend my time thinking about something that's 10% a chance? I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe it's a really big concern. So maybe, yeah, I do want to focus on it, but maybe
Yeah.
not.
I love that. And I love making that choice. Like I think about it sometimes. Oh, to all the parents out there, I always think of like when my boys were younger and I would take them somewhere because we love to hike, and they would just be running and being all goofy. And we'd go by somewhere where like, there were ledges kind of off the side. And like the first thing my brain was like, oh my God, he's going to slide 6 feet and he's going to go off the edge. And I'm not going to be able to find him. And, and I would
Huh?
think about it and be like, seriously, that's where we just went. Like that's where we went. It's not like we're 2 inches off that is like 8 feet from the edge. And he's going to slip and he's going to keep sliding all the way across. And
It's those intrusive thoughts, man. They're brutal sometimes.
it's so brutal sometimes. But you know what though? Like now that I recognize it, I catch it. So like even when it does happen, a lot of the times I can like giggle to myself. And I literally, y'all can laugh at me. I talk to myself all the time. I will literally be like, seriously, that's what we came up with. Out of all the things that could potentially happen,
Uh-huh.
that's where you went. But like it brings it to a reality for me anyways, to be able to like brush it off. And then like the thought doesn't bother me because I realize that like, yeah, like you said, 10%, 5%. Okay, 10% definitely with kids running, but definitely
A little bit
still
higher.
lower, still lower on the totem pole. Oh, children.
Yeah, they sure are
Oh,
fun.
they like to give us heart attacks. It's fine. It's what we're built for. So a question then, because in both of your businesses, you really focus on change. And I feel
Mhm.
like change can mean so many things to so many people. I feel like the first thing that pops in somebody's brain, or at least for me, right, is when you say change, you're thinking of a big event. But how would you define a change in someone's life?
So it depends. And it depends on, right, or within an organization, when we're coming in to do work with them, it's usually because there's a big change that's coming down the pike, and they want to make sure that everybody is understanding this and how it connects to the strategy and how people fit into the strategy and the change is typically when we come in. When it's there's but change is big and small, right? Like, and they impact us every day. Um, you're driving somewhere, you're going to the mall, and you have only a short period of time to go there because you need to pick something up and then you need to get back home before the babysitter is coming over and you and your husband are heading out on a date. I don't know, making it up. You're on your way and there's a detour. And all of a sudden, you don't know how you're going to get there or how much longer this is going to take you. You go through that change, you get through it quickly, right? But that's still a change, and you're still going out of your discomfort zone. You're still feeling disruption in your day, and that's tough. And those things compounded, multiple things at once, eventually start to wear on you, right? Multiple times, changes happening during a day, it's hard. One change here and there during the day, okay, that was annoying, but we worked it out, we're fine. And then you compound that with whatever is going on with you at work or whatever else is going on with your family. And especially like, our kids are very different spots in their life right now. My kids are in elementary school, but like, remember how it was like when your kids were babies and you felt like once you got to a point where you understood this child, you knew what a cry meant, you knew what this meant, and then all of a sudden they hit a new milestone and everything that you knew went out the window.
Hey, crap, I start all over again.
That's, that's really hard. And that's sometimes how it feels with other changes too, right? It's like, I thought that I knew what was going on. I thought I understood this. And now, spoiler alert, I don't. And I feel really uncomfortable and I don't know how to get through this anymore. And oftentimes when we're talking about individuals, that leads to things like disengagement or burnout. It leads to feelings of anxiety, and you're really unsure where you stand in life in general. When we're talking about in a company, right, those things, when they continue to compound, because we are all human beings and we have lives outside of work, and we've got changes in our personal life, we've got changes in the office, all of a sudden, those things keep compounding. And if we're not helping people understand what changes are coming and how they're impacted by them, that's when you start to see lower numbers in engagement. You start to see people kind of feeling like they don't really need to be a part of it because they don't see themselves in the future there anymore. They don't understand how they fit into the future. And you as a leader might be saying, well, of course you do. Of course, this is something that's important. We need you here. But if you're not talking to your people about it that way, they don't see it and they don't understand it. And now their brain is swirling, and those bridges that their brains are making through these gaps are pretty gruesome.
Yeah. And I feel like that is, across the board in engagement in life in general, right? I mean, like, I know that I have a really good friend of mine that I've known for 20 plus years. And the first time that she moved away, like, that was a huge change for me. I know it was a big change for her, but hold on a minute. Okay. Look, I was distraught. No, I was really like,
That's really hard.
I was really taken back because at the time, she was my support system. Right. And so it was a huge thing for me. And what's really interesting now is like she's moved several different places, and we don't get to talk as often as we would like, but we've created this space for each other where it's like, okay, I haven't talked to you in 2 months, but I really need to check in and like see how you're doing. And it's like there was no difference in between, right? Like, and I feel like sometimes that when we are going through our own changes in our life, in our business, in a corporate space, whatever it may be, we get kind of hung up on like, but what does this mean for me? But what does this mean for thee? And you forget that like you said, things are going to keep happening. Change is inevitable. And the the quicker that you can let go and relinquish, especially the things that you can't control, and then figure out a plan of action of like, okay, how do I want to handle this? How do I want to go about this? What does it mean to prioritize me or my family or my team to make sure that things are being handled? I feel like that's a completely different space than what a lot of us are used to being in, which is trying to control and hold every single piece together.
Absolutely. We're all wanting to hold on to things. When we're uncomfortable, having some semblance of normalcy, we cling to those things for dear life. We want them so bad because they remind us of who we were or who we continue to want to be, or something that just makes it's our little security blanket, right? And we're sometimes being asked to have one foot in an old way of being, one foot in a new way. And that's very disorienting. And we get wobbly. And so we do need to find out, what are our plans here? How am I going to care about myself so I can help other people? It's that oxygen mask, right? I need to put mine on before I'm going to put on anybody else's. I need to understand how these things are going to impact me. And, these changes, this happens whether a change is something that is like traditionally very, perceived to be a very happy time, or there are things that seem to be very terrifying, things changing at work or in life. And, think about a couple of traditionally perceived happy events and changes in your life. You get married, you moved in with somebody whom you love deeply, you have a child, you get a new job. All those things on paper seem so good. They seem, and you've got
Definitely on
people
paper.
left and right coming and congratulating you, and you're excited, and then it happens. And then you go, oh. Okay, so now I have this other person that I have to make sure understands me and I understand them, and we have to have a way of working together because now we've got my partner is moving in with me, or I have this new little tiny individual who is literally dependent upon me, and how do I handle this? And when I have all these other responsibilities, or I was at my job for a decade, I knew everybody, I knew everything was going, and now I'm somewhere new and I don't know anything. And those are all really scary moments. And in the time and then you start saying to yourself, gosh, what's wrong with me? I should be really happy. This is what I wanted, but why am I feeling like this? Well, you're feeling this because it's uncomfortable. Right? It's uncomfortable. It's a change, and you don't know everything. You haven't gotten to a point to really understand what life is going to be like. You don't know how the person you're moving in with is going to feel about where you put your toothbrush. Do they care? Do they care how you load the dishwasher?
Oh, that one.
My husband and I get into that one a lot.
I think women are just better at playing Tetris than men. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, you guys. Some of you guys are really good at Tetris.
But those are things that are so hard. And so we do sometimes need to have action plans and think about how do we go forward from where we are? Because we were excited. This is something that we wanted because it's progress, right? These were things were progress for us, and progress is hard. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it really is. And I love the examples that you gave as well, right? Because I mean, moving somewhere or especially starting a new job, even if you know basically what you're doing, still in a new environment with new people that you don't know, and like all the things. And now there's different rules and there's going to be different ways that things are done, even though you've done it before. Like all of that, it can be so overwhelming if you allow it to be, right? And I think that's the biggest thing that people need to remember as well is, again, what do I have control over and what do I not? And then in the aspect of the things I can control, what can we do? How can I come about it? Because the minute that you become overwhelmed or allow yourself to get completely stressed in a situation is the minute you put your blinders on. And then all the solutions that are possibilities, you just missed out on all of them because you were so hard focused on being stressed. It's kind of like when they talk about if you can't find the ketchup in the fridge, right? And you're like, I can't find it. I can't find it. And then someone goes and it's right in front of your face. Like your brain literally distorted and deleted
Yes.
what you were looking at because you kept telling yourself something else. So it's the same way with stress. It's the same way with overwhelm. Like, oh my
Mhm.
God, this is terrible. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Oh, this is blah, blah. The more that you continue to play that story, the more that your bandwidth starts to narrow down to the point to
Mhm.
where you miss so many opportunities or things that could have helped you, right? I remember sitting in front of a computer one time when I worked in the medical field, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's just so much." And I was like, I can't find the button. It's right there on the screen. It's right there on the screen, you know." But it's like we get in our heads so much
Yes.
that, and the brain can only handle so much to begin with, that we literally cut off the supply for finding solutions. So, how do you help your clients when they're in that space of change? What are some of the suggestions that you would give to, like, not necessarily overwhelm and freak out, but handle it a little bit differently so you
Right.
can continue to see forward?
There's a couple of things, and I work with a lot of high achievers. And when they're in a place where things are uncomfortable and they're stressed, they take it on themselves that it's something that they're doing wrong, that they don't under, that's not coming easy to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk a lot about kindness to yourself. I think it's really important, especially, you're starting a new job. You don't understand the new system. You don't understand the people you're working with. They have different personalities than maybe you're used to. What are the things that you're doing well? Let's flip the switch. Let's stop talking about the things you suck at right now. What are you doing well right now? What is something today that shifted for you and made today okay? And there's always something. It might be small, and that's okay. It might be huge, and that's amazing. But there's always something that you can come back to and say, like, I did this right today, and I'm new at this, and I'm going to learn, and I am not there yet, but I will be. It's a lot about helping people understand growth mindset and how do you continue to help yourself grow and understand that you're not always going to be perfect at every single thing that happens right away. And it takes time, and that's okay. The other is to make sure that you are getting curious and you're thinking about what could be different, what should be different. If
Mm.
there was, if I could paint a perfect picture of my day tomorrow, what would that look like? Figure out, draw that picture for yourself. I'm very tactile. I always ask people to draw that out for themselves because I think it's
Love that.
really important. There's it's really important to like actually not just keep something in your brain, but like see it on a piece of paper. This is what a perfect day looks like to me for
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow. Okay, so if that's perfect, how do you get there? What needs to be true? And we talk about it and we get to a solution for them that's going to be right for them. When it comes and we're working within corporations, what we're oftentimes talking about is helping people see how they fit into things. If people understand, everybody always talks about like help people understand the why of the change. Yes, always important. Do not get me wrong. Like everybody should understand why something is changing. But if they don't understand the how of that change, how do I fit into that change? How does this change fit into this strategy of this organization? And do I see how I fit into the strategy? Without those
Mm.
things, it's so hard to go and to move forward. We talk a lot about getting people to not just comply with change, right? That's me saying, Kat, this is changing and you're going to do it. And you're like, okay, that, that lasts for a couple of days.
Yeah.
That's not lasting change. So what we talk about is helping people to commit to a change. And that gives an exponential amount of growth for change and helps changes actually reach their intended outcomes. And we take people through a process to help them get to that space. And we help them understand all the questions. Remember in grade school, learning about journalism, the why, what, how, when,
Yep.
all of those questions, making sure that people understand those and giving them real life experiences to get their hands dirty and experiment with what the future will look like.
I love that. And I love the fact of like breaking it down as well, because that I feel like also gives people the chance to intake it the way that they do, right? I
Mhm.
definitely feel like, especially when you're dealing with a team, even as an entrepreneur, but definitely in the corporate space, everything is so one way, and it's explained that one way. And we forget that people take things in all different ways, depending on who they are, depending on where they're at in their life, depending on traumas that they've been through. Like there's so
Yeah.
many ways that people can intake information. Like I know that for me, I'm very visual. So if I can see it, if I can draw it out, if I can do anything like that, that helps me. And when I'm working with people and talking with people, it's the same thing, right? They love that visual. But then I have other people that are like, I need like a bullet point of stuff. And I'm like, okay. But you have to be okay with that. And I think that
Mhm.
breaking this who, what, where, when, why, and all of that down kind of allows people to at least intake the information. And then the responsibility is also on them, right, to then ask additional questions for anything that they don't understand
Absolutely.
because of the way that they see things.
Yeah, this is really, some of these things we're talking about is communication, and communication is not a one-way street. So part of the onus is on a leader, and part of the onus is on an employee to have conversation and to understand and to not just talk to, to your leader, talk to your peers, understand what's going on. How are they seeing things? Because to your point, Kat, everybody has a different worldview. Everybody has different experiences, and we see the world through that lens, right? We see how things are coming and shading because of all the experiences we've had leading up to right here, right now.
Yeah.
So let's hear what other people have to say, because maybe what you're experiencing is different from somebody else. And maybe what they're understanding and seeing it as might benefit you and help you as you're trying to challenge yourself and get curious for yourself of what could be.
Yeah, very true. And I love the fact of like you said, creating this kind of map, this drawing out of, what do I want it to look like? And then how can I get to that? I love that visual because I've also used it in my business as well. Like, especially if I've had like a couple of really rough days or whatever the case may be, usually because of kids and all the other stuff, not necessarily because of business, but you wake up that next morning, you're like, I just need it to be better. And it's like focusing on where you want it to be, I think also opens the mind up to find those pieces a lot easier. And then if it doesn't meet that expectation completely, it's a lot easier for you to be like, but I did this and I got this done. Like that's pretty good, especially
Yeah.
considering the last couple of days. Like I think it's so much easier for us to give ourselves grace when we're thinking in that positive direction versus you get up in the morning and you dread. If you dread, everything around you is going to be dread because you've already put that in place of how you're starting your day. And to me, I think it's 10 times harder to get into that place of positive and be able to see even the small things around you. And your morning is what starts it. It really is what starts that.
Yeah. You're making me think. I don't know. Have you heard of the concept of glimmers?
I just saw this on Instagram the other day and I thought it was so cool.
Yeah,
So, but
but that's
explain
what you're
it.
describing, right? It's this idea that we don't always have to be looking for the constant big shiny event or moment of a day. It's these little tiny moments that bring us just even a spark of joy in a fleeting moment. To find those times and those moments help you and open you up to see these other things that could be coming your way. And you just don't
Yes.
recognize it because we get so caught up in our heads of the all the muck and mire we're dealing with every day and getting bogged down with, that we need something or somebody to help us filter out the water so we have something clear to look through.
Yeah. And I love this term glimmers. Like it's such a cute term. I don't know. It's just a thing, but it's so funny too, because like I have realized that the more that I started focusing on the small positive things around me, like the more I can find them. And like one of my favorite things to do is like if my husband and I go for a walk, and he laughs at me every time, but I swear to you, I will find the tiniest mushroom that is like somewhere off the side of a piece of wood, like 5 feet over to the right. And I'm like, I gotta go take a picture. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, it's so cute. But like, beforehand, I remember taking walks and like, yes, I enjoyed the trees and I enjoyed the sun, but like that was kind of it. Now I find myself like I am looking for like the small things. Like, what can
Yes.
I pick up? What is so pretty that like nobody else noticed? Like we went for a walk the other day and I was like, oh, I love these little flowers. They're so cute. It's like this one little patch. And then I went to take a picture and a bumblebee landed. And I was like, oh, even better.
They're so fuzzy. How could you not love
No, right? But it's
it?
things like that. Like I feel like that's like a perfect example of what you would consider a glimmer. It's noticing
Yes.
those small things because you're right. I think that a lot of us talk more about the bigger pieces. A lot of us talk more with our friends, with our coworkers, online, whatever. We share like the big moments and we forget, or sometimes we don't want to share the smaller pieces. But I'm all for like, if you saw it as a win, shout that crap from the rooftop. Like, hell yeah, kudos to you. Because there's some people that are in really, really deep, dark places. And they have to start small, right?
Mhm.
Brushing their teeth was like a freaking milestone for them. Okay. So
Yes.
they should be able to be proud of that. Just because I got up this morning and I was able to do everything doesn't mean that they're falling behind. That's where they're at in their journey. And that made
Mhm.
sense to them. And so that was a goal for them to be able to just get up out of bed. We need to share that more often, I think.
Absolutely. And I think that also helps build more kindness in this world when you start to recognize where we all are and that we're not all in the same race. We're not all on the same track.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. And if somebody getting out of bed and brushing their teeth is a big win for them, then yes, we should all celebrate that. That's a huge moment for that person. And that could be just as big of a moment as it was for you to have your celebration event today. And having, so many people joining when you weren't sure they were going to. And then
Yeah.
that's also amazing. They're both they both can be true.
Yeah, I love that. I'm all for it. Like we just need to flood the internet with small wins and everybody
Yes,
brighten people up. I'm all for it. Let's start the trend. We need a new
let's
trend
do
anyway.
it.
So Jessica, I can't thank you enough. I think this is such an amazing topic and a conversation. And it's something that, like you said, we face and we deal with almost on a daily basis, right? And it's never going to stop, right? Like change is inevitable. And to be completely honest, who wants to stay in the same thing every single day, day in and day out? Like you to me, it becomes stagnant. So like embrace the change because it's going to happen and find new ways to get through it, even when it's a little scary or
Yeah.
you're a little unsure. I think that that's such a testament to what we all need to do more of, but we just hide behind all the other pieces and forget that that's a piece of it. So, as we come to a close, one question that I always ask all my people, do you happen to have a quote or a piece of advice that you would like to leave the audience with?
Oh, yes. I think I'll leave a piece of advice, and it is that when you're faced with a change, it's okay to pause, breathe, and look around and assess the situation before you move forward.
Mm. Oh, good one. Yeah. I love that. I love the pause. That's definitely become a thing in my household. Not only with myself, but even with my kids. Like, okay, take a breath. Let's
Yep.
pause for just a second. I think that that opens up so much of the brain to allow you to just kind of reassess all the things around you versus being caught in that emotion at that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can't even get to a place where we're talking about our executive function until we are able to let ourselves have some of these big feelings and emotions, and we may not understand why we're feeling the way we are. So some of
Mm-hmm.
that pause, I think, can also be a big save for a lot of us before we say or do
Yeah.
something we definitely don't want to
Yep. Boy, I
do.
am the queen of that one. Whoa. I've had to apologize for so many things over my lifetime, but that's okay. That's another story. That's for another day. So
That's just when
Jessica,
I'm hungry. I'm sorry for what I said when I was hungry.
it's all always a big one. Do us a favor then, Jessica, and tell everybody then, where can they find you? How can they connect with you? How can they be in your world?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Jessica Jacobs. You can also find Three Keys Consulting on LinkedIn, and our website is 3-kc.com. And we're looking forward to talking to you.
I love it so much. You guys definitely go and follow her. Remember that change is inevitable. It's always going to happen, no matter big or small. But I think the bigger takeaway is, like Jessica said, being able to pause, take a moment, realize what you can control, let go of the rest, and get used to stepping into the realm of uncomfortability. If that's a word. Because it is adding it to the dictionary today. Thank you so much, Jessica, for all of
Thank
your
you.
information and sharing everything. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thank you. And to everybody else out there, I hope you got some amazing takeaways. I hope you realize, especially if you're going through some changes in your life, that like you are going to come out on the other side. This is just a moment. This is just a time in your life. And it's very important to prioritize what is best for you in those moments of change. Don't forget to put yourself first when it comes to that, because ultimately you've got you and you've got one body. So it's a little important. And until next time, please do me one favor, do one thing nice for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next time, have a fantastic day. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.